She had been reassured that her daughter was safe and happy at her grandma's house. However, when the child suddenly stopped speaking altogether, the mother realized something was seriously amiss. She had hoped her daughter and grandma would form a strong bond, envisioning the grandma's house as a warm, welcoming place filled with freshly baked pastries, soft teddy bears, and comforting warm milk. It wouldn't be long before she discovered just how mistaken she was. For endless months, visits to Grandma June's house had been the highlight for Haley James and her 6-year-old daughter Susie. The two had always loved visiting June's house. It had been a source of love and laughter for them, making them always look forward to it. But out of nowhere, Susie started acting differently right after she visited her grandma. She used to be a lively child, but now she's quiet and keeps to herself, hardly ever smiling or laughing after visiting her grandma's house. She seems visibly scared whenever Haley tells her they're going to see Grandma June, or when Grandma June will be looking after her while Haley is at work. Haley doesn't know what to make of this behavior. Is it just a phase, or is something going on at June's house that she doesn't know about? Haley can't pinpoint when this behavior started. All she knows is that one Saturday morning, Susie started saying she didn't want to visit her grandmother anymore. Despite this, Haley took her to June's a few days later. That's when she noticed how quiet her daughter had become. Something was definitely wrong, and Haley needed to figure it out before it got worse. Feeling torn between wanting to be the perfect mom for Susie and the best daughter for June, Haley found herself in a difficult situation. What used to be a source of love and laughter had turned into a stressful situation for Haley. She didn't want her daughter to miss out on the joy of being a granddaughter. But she also didn't want Susie to feel overwhelmed whenever they visited Grandma June. Trying to find a balance, Haley decided to visit her mom less often. Her mom couldn't understand why the visits, which used to be weekly, were becoming less frequent. Haley couldn't bring herself to explain. She didn't want to hurt her mom. She also noticed a slight change in Susie's behavior. The girl seemed less unhappy, though her face always fell when Haley mentioned Grandma June. What was going on? Haley had hoped to have more time to figure things out, but suddenly, her boss called, saying she needed to go out of town for a business meeting that weekend. She knew what that meant. She'd be gone for at least 2 days and needed someone to look after Susie. Haley felt worried. This was likely to end in disaster. Summoning the courage to endure seeing her daughter's heart get broken, Haley called Susie and informed her that she'd have to spend the weekend at Grandma June's. "But Mommy," the girl started, her bottom lip trembling and eyes already glossy. "You said we wouldn't go there unless we really need to. I don't want to go. Please, Mommy." Haley had to turn away to wipe her own tears. "I really need to," she said, and her daughter's tears finally flowed. But Susie didn't argue or try to change her mind. She seemed to have accepted her fate, which was even more heartbreaking to see. She walked away with her head down, going straight to her room to sleep. The next day, Haley got everything ready and drove her daughter to Grandma June's. The elderly woman was thrilled to see her daughter and granddaughter. She hugged Haley tightly, but her smile faltered when she hugged Susie, as if she sensed something was wrong. She quickly covered it up and hugged the 6-year-old. If only Haley knew the mistake she was making. Haley left Susie at Grandma June's and went on her business trip. But that night, in her hotel room, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd made a terrible mistake leaving her daughter with her mom. She knew June didn't mind watching Susie. They had been close for years, and this should have been the right choice. But for some reason, Susie didn't even want to talk about her grandma, let alone visit and spend time with her. But everything was about to come to light. While lost in thought, Haley's phone rang. She was surprised to see it was her mom calling. "Hi," she answered, taken aback because June rarely called, usually preferring to text. Grandma June sounded worried as she spoke. She said Susie had been acting strangely since she arrived. "I don't know what's wrong," she said. Haley ended the call more worried than before. She couldn't sleep trying to put together the pieces of this puzzle. She couldn't get the image of Susie crying when she told her she'd have to spend the weekend at her grandma's. The girl looked so helpless and meek, as if this was a death sentence. But what could Haley do when she herself didn't know what was happening? Haley did the only thing she could. She called her boss and explained that she had a home emergency. Having already spent the first day of the trip with her coworkers and the business associates they were to meet, Haley wondered if it would be okay to rush home. Her boss, who knew and loved Susie, agreed almost immediately. "Go," she urged. "I hope everything's all right. Keep me posted." Haley got into her car and drove to her mom's house as fast as possible, knowing she would get there a day earlier. Thoughts raced through her mind as she sped down the highway. She needed to figure out what was happening to her daughter. What had changed during their visits to Grandma June's, and how could she fix it? She reached her mom's house in record time. Walking in, she found Susie seated on the floor in the corner of the living room, her eyes vacant, her face filled with a heartbreaking frown. Susie didn't even greet her mom as she usually did. Haley dropped her jacket and hurried to Susie, asking soothingly, "What's wrong, baby?" Susie seemed absent, her eyes staring past Haley as if fixated on something unseen. But that wasn't the worst part. Just when Haley thought things wouldn't get any worse, her daughter brought her knees up to her chest and wrapped her arms around her shins. Ever so slightly, she started rocking back and forth as tears tipped her bottom lashes. "Susie," Haley called her, and the girl seemingly snapped out of it, finally recognizing her mom. "What's wrong?" Haley asked, worry flooding her veins. "You're back," Susie said, still rocking back and forth. Haley had to hold her in place to get her to stop. "Let's go home," the mom said, and Susie, after a minute of thinking it through, got up and headed straight for the front door. She didn't even bother to pack her things or say goodbye to her grandma. She was ready to leave right away. That alone had Haley's mind racing. Was June doing something traumatizing to Susie that she would act this way? On the drive home, Susie was as quiet as ever, withdrawn and lost in thought. But it was more than that. An aura of dread seemed to radiate from her, making Haley even more apprehensive. The mom started asking questions as soon as the two of them got into their apartment, but Susie wouldn't break. She kept her lips tight, the tears in her eyes telling the story her tongue couldn't. "It's all right, baby," Haley said in Hunter. She had an ace up her sleeve that would help settle this matter. Right before leaving for her business trip, she'd secretly installed cameras all over her mom's house. From the kitchen and the living room to the bedroom that Susie usually slept in, Haley had watchful eyes to record what was happening. With her daughter seated behind her, the mom turned on her laptop and connected to the camera footage. Haley took a deep breath, unsure of what she would find. What was her mom doing to Susie that it made her so scared and upset? The camera footage would reveal everything. For 2 hours, there was nothing significant. Grandma June went about her usual tasks, making dinner and trying to bond with Susie, who remained quiet and upset. Haley was about to give up when she saw something. At first, she thought she was imagining things, but she realized she could rewind the footage. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw it, a fast-moving shadow in the background where her daughter was. "What was that?" Haley whispered, rewinding the footage again. This time, she played it in slow motion and gasped as she saw the silhouette of a man. Haley watched in horror as the footage unfolded. She noticed that Grandma June wasn't around at the time of the recording. At first, Susie seemed calm, but she tensed up when the shadow moved behind her. Her eyes widened and she started trembling. Slowly, Susie's eyes moved to the side and she began shaking her head slowly, clearly terrified. Haley immediately reached for the phone. "Mom," she demanded as soon as June picked up her call. "Is there someone visiting or living with you?" But Grandma June seemed genuinely surprised by the question. "No." "Why do you ask? Do you want me to host someone?" "No," Haley answered. She didn't explain what she'd just seen in the footage, but then it dawned on her that if her mom didn't know that someone was in her house, she might also be in danger. "Can you come over to my place now?" Haley asked, trying not to spook her mom. The image of the shadowy figure had seared itself into her mind, making her blood curdle. "I'm a bit busy at the moment, honey," Grandma June said. "It's an emergency, Mom," Haley quickly added. The fact that her daughter had been this traumatized for weeks meant that the intruder, whoever he was, had been frequenting Grandma June's house. Either June knew about it or she was in danger too. She agreed to come over, and as soon as she confirmed that she was out of the house, Haley phoned the authorities. She explained everything, even sending over the footage. The authorities wasted no time in responding. By the time Grandma June was over at Haley's, a team had been dispatched to scour the older woman's house. What they find would send shockwaves all over the town. When Grandma June arrived at Haley's, she found a distraught Haley trying to comfort her daughter. Haley felt like she failed Susie more times than she could count. June tried to console her, quickly finding herself in the same boat as soon as she learned that a man had been visiting her house whenever she wasn't around. With tears in her eyes, she checked Susie all over, quickly feeling her clothes. "Oh God. Oh no. Did they ever hurt you?" Susie shook her head, but even though her mom and grandma finally understood what was happening, Susie seemed even more scared. "He's got to come for you too now," she said. "He said he'd hurt you if I said anything." Her tears doubled. No, Haley assured her, kneeling down. "He can't get to us or you. I promise." Grandma June nodded reassuringly beside her, her eyes still wet. It was then that the authorities called with their findings. The findings were as shocking as they were disturbing. It turns out a person had been living in Grandma June's attic without permission. The authorities found him sleeping up there with supplies to last him a few days. However, most of his belongings were items June recognized as hers. What made it even worse was that the man was wanted in multiple states and had recently escaped custody. As the officers took him away, they thanked Haley and her family for all they'd done. As for Susie, her experiences at her grandma's would hopefully return to what they used to be, moments filled with love and laughter.